Alright, in this video I want to cover another question that I had about making guitar bodies and another method. I had previously shown a method on using the surface workbench to make a body for a guitar. Let's do another one. So, first things first, we have to make an outline of our guitar body, and this time I'm going to be doing it, I think, pretty much entirely in part design. So I want to highlight the XZ plane and create a sketch. And notice how this goes transparent, and that's because in my image plane I set this transparency to a level of 75, and that allows me to be able to see my sketch quite easily. So heading back to my sketch now, you can make a bunch of arcs of varying radii that are all tangent to each other to approximate the curvature as shown by these non-constant radius curves. That is perfectly fine. I've done that actually, and it actually works better than you might think. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to go with a B-spline and simply click all around the border. So using the arcs that are constant radius, it really does help if you're trying to make a fully constrained drawing quite simply. This is better if you want to capture an actual non-constant radius curve. So weigh your options and figure out what's best for your design. Now, it's kind of interesting that Rhino, which I actually haven't used, but I have acquaintances that do use it, actually has a tool that it will take a non-constant radius spline, you enter a tolerance into it, and it has a tool that breaks the non-constant radius spline into approximated constant radius arcs that are tangent to each other. You can imagine that that is a pretty handy tool to have. Now I'm going a little bit wider on this point because if we have a wider radius here, then we'll be able to fill at this edge a lot easier than if we just go really tight later on. So that's the kind of design intent that I'm putting on. A little bit of a wider radius to hopefully fill it quite smoothly. I won't make you sit through the rest of this, so I'll see you after I'm done. Alright, so that is my guitar body that I just clicked around a bunch of times, and looks alright to me. Looks like it matches up pretty well. So, exiting that sketch, I think we're ready to start creating some more profiles of the body. So the first thing, I want to reference my top plane, or my XY plane here, as long as I can get my view worked out. We'll grab XY plane here in the tree, and then make a datum plane. And since I grabbed that in the tree, we can just offset relative to the datum plane as a reference. I'll actually flip sides, and let's say that I offset 180 millimeters. So we're starting just shy of where this guitar body is, and that's kind of where I want to be. So I'm going to say OK to that, and let's create a sketch on that datum plane. So we're sketching on the datum plane. I'm going to make sure that I'm oriented in the way that I want. Let's see, right about there is good. So I want to sketch this way, and I think if I do a line pointing up, just as kind of a reference, and I reset my sketch view, yeah, my line's pointing down, so this would be pointing towards the top of the guitar. So this top place is going to be the bottom of the guitar with how I want to orient it. So we're kind of looking at the guitar like it's facing towards the ground in this view, if you will. I'm going to hide my datum plane with the space bar. And let's grab, polyline. I'm going to come across here, there, there, and then I'm going to draw 3 lines. And that's because I want to have 6 sketch figures overall. And I'm going to make this, say, 37 millimeters thick. And that's with a Shift V to make a vertical dimension. Shift H to make a horizontal dimension will be let's say 300 millimeters wide, and leaving my horizontal dimension on, we'll say 50 and 50, and then maybe I'll choose a symmetric and go from this point to the origin in the middle, and that will center us. And now we have a profile that seems to work pretty well with our guitar, right? So we're saying that this is the back of the guitar and this is the front of the guitar. And we have 6 sketch elements because I think future sketches will require 6 sketch elements, even though you could have gotten away with doing 4 on this one. Let's exit the sketch now. Let's grab a plane. Actually, let's cancel that, right? I'm going to delete my plane. I want to reference my XY plane foremost. And that way any updates won't affect references to other planes. Let's move this down in the Z direction. How does 100 look? Yeah, a bit more. So I have some curvature that I want to do on my body, and I want it to start right around this plane. So I think 150 is okay. So I'm going to select 150. We're going to sketch on this plane and then hide it. So we say this is where my plane starts. I'm going to import these 2 lines. We're going to go into Polyline and trace around it. I'm going to put a line there and put a line over here. So as you can see, that's where we're at. Oh, and I guess I need to put a line over here too. Just like that. And our line should be right about there. And right about there. So I'm going to say Shift H, and that will give me a horizontal dimension. We're going to say, how about 82? And 73. I'll round up to the next millimeter. Resetting our view. We're ready to try some curvature. And just to make sure, yes, you can see how my front is facing towards the front where we're going to have our curvature on our face. So we're looking good. I'm going to make a 6-point spline now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm going to add some relations, right? I'm going to click here and here. And between these 2 points, I'm going to say horizontal. And then here and up here, vertical. And then here and here, horizontal. And here, vertical. Of course, I'm using the H for horizontal, the H key, and the V key for vertical, respectively. And then we'll say horizontal again. And now I can start to trace out the kind of curvature that I would like to see on my guitar. Probably right around there will give me a nice, good curvature. So, we'll exit the sketch. Now I want to go to where I have like a local maximum, which I think is going to be right around here, right? My guitar is locally the widest right in here. So I'm going to put a plane there and use that to trace my curvature all around. To do that, we'll highlight datum plane, and actually I should cancel the creation of that and delete it. I want to highlight my XY first and create a datum plane, and we'll go in the Z direction. We'll flip sides. Great, so we're about at the widest point, intersecting with about the widest point of our guitar at 85. So I'm going to create a sketch on there. And as always, I can highlight my datum plane on my tree and hit the space bar to hide my plane. I will again import these 2 edges. And I can go from there to there. In fact, it'd be better if I used my polyline tool. There to there. There to there. I thought I was in polyline. And we'll go from there to there. There we go. Well, I am. And there to there. And again, I want to keep, and I have to be looking at the right side of my sketch to be able to move these around. So if you're looking at the other side of the sketch plane, right, you're not going to be able to move this around. You have to be on this side of the sketch plane. And you can always, if that's an issue, you have to be on the other side of the sketch plane, go to data and change your map reverse into true, and that will allow you to access the other side of the sketch. Anyway, we're going to go there and over here, and we're going to say Shift H. Oh, highlight this line, Shift H, we'll say 39. Shift H again, we're going to say, how about 40? And we'll make the same kind of curvature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You don't have to add these horizontals and verticals. Horizontal there for the H key, but you can see when the second point is horizontal to the first point, you have like a tangency between these lines, which I think is very beneficial. Vertical between these points, and that is to just reduce my degrees of freedom so I can more quickly and efficiently adjust my curve. Of course, it gives me fewer options, but I don't need more options. Horizontal between these 2 points so that we have a consistent height where it reaches the highest right in the middle. And then we're going to say vertical and horizontal again. And now I can adjust it to roughly the same height that I had before. And maybe we'll move this out just a hair. So, close that. How about another one? Let's go to this kind of local minimum point of curvature right here. I'll highlight my XY plane. Yep, so I'll just move that up the Z-axis a hair. And we'll say OK. So, I'll do the same thing as before, right? Sometimes, some of these things I make, I feel like I'm making everybody just watch me repeat the same thing over and over. Import these two as a reference. We'll go to polyline. In fact, I'll start here, there, 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 and there. I'll move that just inside there. And same to there. So we're kind of hugging our surface there. Now you'll see we got kind of a graphics thing going on where it looks like we just have an imported line. But we go to the other side of the plane, and there you can see that we have an actual line that we've sketched over that. So just be aware of some of the graphics. I'm guessing programmatically there's probably some kind of layer that's causing that. 70 here, and again Shift H for the horizontal dimension. Maybe 73 over here. And let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6-point B-spline. And this point, and this point horizontal. Looks like we've got a little conflict here, so let me Control Z that. Looks like I have an auto constraint right there that's coincident. So let me get rid of that coincident. And we're going to say from here to here horizontal. Of course, that coincident may have been acting as a horizontal, so I don't know if that was beneficial to do that or not, but hey, now I know that it's horizontal. Go vertical with the V key between here and here. Between these 2 points, horizontal, again with the H key. Vertical V between these points. Looks like they're vertical. And then from this point to this point, we're going to go horizontal. And same thing. I'm eyeballing it. Of course, you can use dimensions on these B-splines if you want to be exact, which is probably appropriate for a very serious project. We'll close that. Right, so you can see we're tracing our curvature to where the end of the curvature point is going to kind of swing out and go back in and then maybe back out a little bit. If we wanted to preview this and get an idea of how our loft is going to act, or our suite, because that's an option too, I can choose a nice utility to loft. We can choose a sketch here, and I'll add a section here, and add a section here, and here. And it looks like we've got a pretty well-behaved, pretty well-behaved loft going on. So if I accept that, then yeah, it's not too bad. We may need, I can show my sketch profiles to see how this loft is interacting with our sketch profiles here. We can always add in intermediate profiles to get this to act with the concavity that we want. I have a feeling that as we continue on, this is going to even itself out, so I'm not very concerned. You'll notice that guitars often will have kind of a thinner portion near the end, and I could have modeled my sketches to make it go thicker as we do. But we get a little bit less good behavior, if you will, if I do that. I will show you an example of that a little bit later. So I'm leaving a very constant profile everywhere except for this top curvature because I can afford to on a design like this. I'm going to get rid of my additive loft and onward with another plane. So, excuse me, I can add another profile right here at this local minimum if I wish, but I think we're going to be doing just fine to avoid that, unless we can always add that in the future if we need to. So let me actually cancel the creation of this plane because I'm terrible at this, but I need to highlight my XY plane and then create my datum plane because that's the easiest for me to make datum planes. Let's offset that. What do we do with 30? Yeah, let's go a bit higher. So you can see we've got sort of a local maximum right here. And we can go ahead and sketch around that. Excellent. So we have this plane here. We'll make a sketch on it. And then I can go back into my tree. We'll actually just hide it with the space bar. Same thing as before. Importing these guys. We'll grab a polyline and go all around, and we'll end up here. And one more over here. And that, wow, I did not mean to do that in any way, but I think we're actually looking pretty good with the curvature that we want. So I'll say Shift H, and we'll reduce that down a little bit to maybe 65, and Shift H again, maybe to 44. Now, going back to this view, B-spline time. 6 points, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'll go from this point to this point, H for horizontal. It looks like I have a little conflict there. And so I'm going to Control Z that. And again, I think I have an auto constraint, so I'll just delete that. I think the auto constraint really is going to be horizontal, but just to make sure, we're going to say horizontal. We've added that. Now from, I might have to go to this side of the plane to select things. I'll just reset my sketch view. Make sure that this is selectable. There we go, from here. to here, V for vertical. From here to here, H for horizontal. Here to here, V for vertical. And here to here, H for horizontal. And let's deliver a very similar height. Just like that. Go back to our tasks and close. Next, let's make this really easy on ourselves, shall we? How about I grab my XY plane, make another datum plane. In the Z direction, if I go 100, maybe we ought to go 200. That's pretty good. Right, we're going pretty far off. So we're going to say OK on that. Let's create a sketch on our new datum plane. In fact, I can hide it now with the space bar and create a sketch on it. So now we're in the sketch. Let's make it easy on ourselves. And I will use this tool right here, copies the geometry of a sketch, and choose the last sketch that I've done. So that gives us about 5 degrees of freedom, as the last sketch had. So we should be good to go. Let's see how this guitar gets made. I'm going to hide my image plane now. Let's go with a loft. Again, utility to loft. We'll start with this sketch. Then we're going to go from, add section to here, to here, to here, to here, and to here. That seems like a very nice, well-behaved guitar profile. So I'm going to say OK to that, right? And there's our curvature. And that's relative to our guitar body. So that seems nice and organic and pretty good for what we're going for. Now we are a little bit misbehaved up here, but I don't think it's going to matter because we're way far out. But if it does matter, we'll just make another cross section and loft to that first, and that will settle it right down. So next, how would I edit my very first sketch? And nothing in the sketch is constrained, so it's probably not worth trying to constrain everything now. But I'm just going to draw a rectangle that goes over our entire body, right? And we're going to close that. And now let's do a cut. And let's do through all and symmetric to plane. And there we have an electric guitar body. You can see we've got some curvature on the top face. Yeah, that's looking really good. Now we can always thin this up in a few ways, right? Because it's looking kind of thick for an electric guitar. So the first things first, let's do a cut on the YZ plane. So we're looking at it from the side view, and I can reset my sketch view here. Maybe I'll come all the way through here, and I can also clip my view. I haven't done this in a while on FreeCAD, but this option allows me to see my sketch when it's inside of something. Right, and so that we can get kind of a curve that makes it thinner at the end like I was talking about. I can add a horizontal dimension relative to the origin by selecting that point and saying Shift H, and maybe we can make that 25. And then that's not too bad there. I'll select that point, Shift V, maybe we'll give that -60. And then we can Shift R to give this, say, 400. And then Shift V again, and I'll give this -200, right? We're just shoring up some dimensions. I think we've got 1 or 2 degrees of freedom left. We're going to say, again, 190 perhaps. Oops, and I accidentally exited my sketch. I'm in 019. I don't even have to have that problem if I would just go into Edit, Preferences, Sketcher, and then escape can leave sketch edit mode. I'll just uncheck that, and that's how you stop accidentally leaving sketches, by pressing escape. So now that I'm back in with my toggle mode on, I'll hit the T key, T for tangent. I'll select this arc and my line, and we're fully defined so far. I'm just making a little profile to make a cut. Right, we're going to say horizontal, vertical, over here, and then Shift H, maybe 80, right? So then when we close, and we'll give this a cut, symmetric to plane, I'll say through all, symmetric to plane, done. So that's looking more electric guitar-ish to me, and it gets thin at the back. Now, why do the extra step that covers thinness in the back when I could have just sketched my profiles to start thin and go thick? Let me pull up another example as to why you may want to avoid doing that. So this is where you can see my sketch profiles are thin and they become more thick. And if I take a look rather on the side of my guitar profile, you can see that this is the front of the guitar, and because this profile is trying to thicken up, it's pulling down the face of curvature that I worked so hard to create. And this was tried with a sweep and with a loft, and it's just been pretty messy to try to do all these things all at the same time. Generally, when it comes to CAD, especially with surfacing, but I think this counts too, you try to break it up to do one step at a time as much as possible if you start coming across weird behavior such as this. So instead of trying to do this variable thickness down here while doing this upper face curvature, I broke it down to only worry about this upper face curvature, and then I handled this variable thickness in a second operation. And we did an extrude cut. If you need something more complicated, you can do a loft, no problem. But that is how I avoided this strange behavior on this sample guitar that didn't turn out very good at all. Next, we may want to add a few other details. My favorite is fillets. I think they look great on guitars, so we'll select that edge. And notice we have a nice fillet that goes all the way around, and maybe I can play with that to go, I don't know if it'll let us go more than 1 millimeter actually. I'm just going to say 1 for now. We have a nice smooth edge now. Now you can see why I made this wider, because if this was a super tight pointy turn, trying to get a fillet around something really tight isn't that feasible, so that's why I kind of made that a little bit more of a wide gradual curve. I think this has turned out to be a pretty great guitar body. You can definitely see the kind of curvature that we have from one side to another, where our bottom is completely flat. So I think that's more of a realistic look for a guitar body, and I think one that will work out pretty well. I might also want to try filleting this bottom edge, which I have a feeling might fillet a little bit easier. Or not. Looks like it doesn't want to fillet at all. So I won't mess with it too much. But that's our guitar body. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.